All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. So do have a great lineup of speakers. For those who I haven't met, I'm Amy Baldwin. I'm the Community Development Director with Otter County. And we are pleased to be here today hosting Convening lenders, but talking about business resources and those with the focus on the lender community. And we're really appreciative of Otter Power for being our host this afternoon. And I'll invite Chris Balls up to talk about a little bit of Otter Power, its resources, and give a little more line.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Chris Balls with Otter Power. I manage our sales and implementation team here at OTP. But yeah, we're happy to welcome you all. Sounds like the kind of the first gathering of this, so appreciate the opportunity to be the host and welcome. Some snacks over here, help yourself, and then just maybe logistics too. Bathrooms are right around the corner here as you step out these doors. But yeah, appreciate the opportunity to give a little bit of background update on Ottertail as well, and then I think just kind of a quick 30-second on how Ottertail might be able to help your customers and borrowers and things of that nature too. But just for some general updates on Ottertail, I think a lot of folks probably know, but the electric utility industry is ever changing, doesn't seem to be slowing down. So both from kind of this trend, which we are actively participating in, which is beneficial electrification and what that means and strategies around that. But then also a big change in electric generation and our fleet and what that all means and integrating that across Ottertail. So for those that don't know, Ottertail is a public investor-owned utility. We operate in 3 states, Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. We serve about 155,000 customers in that 3-state jurisdiction. So that's just kind of the quick synopsis at Ottertail. Any questions from anybody on that, or anything from a kind of questions that you might have about Ottertail or for Ottertail there? Just pause. No. Well, and then just real quick on the lender side of things. I think maybe one thing that I would encourage you all to think about when you're talking with customers, borrowers, is encourage them that if they're not talking to their utility providers, to be talking to their utility providers. There is a lot of money that not only Ottertail, but essentially any utility offers by way of rebates for energy efficiency conservation. We have rebates also for what's called demand side management or load management too. Maybe a quick and dirty example, we'll have a project that'll come through here in the next couple of weeks up in Bemidji. A good example of a new construction where they ended up spending, at least on the front end, an additional $100,000 on their building and envelope and what's called heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. They'll get $200,000 back in rebates from Ottertail Power. That said, they'll also lower their operating costs by about 15% on an annual basis on that project. So that's not uncommon for what we see and what we try to work with our customers on. So again, I would just encourage you to leverage those programs. That's all I have to say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
All right, thanks again for hosting today. Appreciate the space. So a little bit of context, Chris mentioned, this is the first time we've kind of done this, except for those who were in Perham with us this morning. So second time today, but the first time that the county has acted as a convener of this particular audience and bringing together information and resources that hopefully you as lenders can connect to your clients, help them accomplish their goals, potentially save money through energy, efficiency projects, anything that might help the bottom line of that business, help a project cash flow in a better way, and bring in those resources as well. So we'll be talking, we have a full agenda, so we'll jump right in, but we want this to be conversational as well. And so if you have questions, be thinking about them, jot them down. We'll have some open time as well to bring those questions forward and have kind of more discussion with the group. So with that, I'm going to jump right into our first presenter, who is Ian. There you are. Come on up, Ian. Carlstrom from the Small Business Development Center. And the clicker is working, so I'll turn that over to you, Ian, and no mic today, so outside voice.
Outside voice. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chris and Otter Power, for hosting us today. My name is Ian Carlstrom. I'm the Regional Director for our West Central Minnesota SBDC. SBDC stands for Small Business Development Centers. I want to give you a quick history before we get started. We've been around for like 45 years. Minnesota was actually part of the pilot program of the SBDCs back in 1979. Of course, this was before my time, but the story that I tell is that we did such a darn good job that in 1980, we were written into law under federal, the SBA, under President Carter. Fast forward to today, we've got over 1,000 centers across the country and beyond, Puerto Rico, Guam, Virgin Islands, stuff like that. We serve about 1 million entrepreneurs a year. We're one of the SBA resource partners. So if you've ever heard of Women's Business Centers, Veterans Business Outreach, Apex, I don't know if they're an official partner, but SCORE. But across all of the SBA resource partners, we are the largest, most successful technical assistance. We'll talk more about what that word means, but technical assistance and management program. Some of our brothers and sisters companies have, a couple offices in the state, or maybe serve like 3 states with a couple people. We have about 150 people here in the state of Minnesota. So there's an SBDC office near you, and there's SBDC staff all over the state. So talk a little bit about what do we do. We provide technical assistance, which means that we're not just cheerleaders. If you have a client that needs help filling out a loan application, we'll go in the weeds with them. We'll go line by line down that application. We won't do it for them, but we'll go down question by question and spend that time assisting them. The vast majority of our work is one-on-one, kind of confidential behind closed doors. So we don't do a lot of flashy stuff on Facebook. We do some workshops and training events, but the vast majority of our efforts are just one-on-one with entrepreneurs. We work with both startups and existing companies. So if your client just had a business idea yesterday and that's where they're at, we can help them. If they're a generational business owner that's ready to sell, after 50 years, we can help them with that too. From business planning to market research, access to capital, financial projections, exporting, buying or selling a business, we can help with all sorts of things. I always like to say that owning a business is kind of like owning a home, and think about a first-time home buyer, all those random questions that you have or all those concerns that you need to ask your realtor. It takes a lot of time, a lot of hand-holding. It takes a special kind of realtor to put up with a first-time home buyer. We're kind of like that especially for the first-time business owner. Of course, we don't just work with first-time business owners, just like realtors don't just work with first-time homeowners. But really, providing that coaching, consulting, mentoring, advising, there's a lot of different words around there because no 2 entrepreneurs are alike. Some know the answers, but just need that confidence boost. Some have no idea and really need a teacher. Here in West Central, we've got the same 9-county footprint that you all are familiar with. We're hosted at M State. We've been there for almost 2 years now. Me and Amy I'm the director. She's the associate director. We're full-time employees of the college. We have a team of 12 part-time contract consultants who live and work throughout the region. So they live and work in Fergus Falls, Alexandria, Detroit Lakes, all over. I've been doing this long enough to know that small towns don't want to be served by the big town. You want somebody local to help your entrepreneurs. We also have a couple strategic partnerships. I'll talk about that in a second, as well as a regional advisory board. Here's a picture of most of our team, at least. Most of these folks are just individual, independent contractors that are business owners themselves. A couple of them highlighted in yellow. We've got Lena. She's with Cultural Diversity Resources, one of our strategic partners in Moorhead. Their efforts are really focused on new American and BIPOC entrepreneurs. We've got Justin Nepple. He's down with Southern Valley Economic Development. Down in Wahpeton, Breckenridge area. They're out there serving entrepreneurs and we're supporting them in doing that. We've got Beth, who is working here with the Foundry, Greater Fergus Falls. Another great local effort that we're trying to support as well. So it's important for us to not just do great work ourselves, but to support the other people, play nice in the sandbox, as we call it. We're a resource for you, for lenders and for your clients. You know, we've got a variety of tools on the left side, from business planning tools and templates and examples to market and industry data reports. So if you've got a new client that wants to get into a new industry, they don't maybe know much about the industry, we can pull a 30-page report that'll give them all sorts of things, from labor statistics and wages to trends, to, you know, how has this industry recovered since the pandemic, you know, just random things like that. We've got tools that can pull financial benchmarks, that can help people put together well-educated guesses. You know, none of us have a crystal ball when it comes to putting projections in place, but at least we know what industry averages look like. We can help build pro formas. So, you know, a 30-page packet that's got historicals and projections and balance sheets, cash flows, amortizations, everything that you guys need to get to a lending decision. We've got intensive entrepreneur training programs. Fast Track is one of them that can help somebody to get to idea to launch in about 90 days. We just launched an AI resource lab. I'll talk about that in a second. We've got folks that are certified in cybersecurity, exit planning. Our consultants are a resource for you. They're business owners themselves. So just like you wouldn't take parenting advice from somebody that doesn't have kids, you shouldn't take business advice from somebody who's never owned and operated their own business. That's what I believe anyways. We require professional development on top of that. So getting certified, sharpening the saw, you know, just learning new things, right? Our program is nationally accredited, which means that we have operations manuals, we have codes of conduct. We're not just winging it out there. I'll talk about a couple of specialty areas that I hear a lot from folks like you, folks like mayors, EDAs. Succession planning is one of them. It's asking a business owner, like, what are you going to do with it when you're done with it? Not that long ago, we did a workshop, and this was part of the introduction, the icebreaker, where we went around the room and asked people, how long have you been in business? And they all said, you know, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Then we asked them, how many more years do you want to be in business? It's remarkable that not many of them could answer that, because like, this is their baby, it's their identity. Why would they want to say, oh, I'm going to be done with it sometime? So therefore, it's really hard for them to talk about succession planning. So we're trying to make that easy. We're trying to simply raise awareness, plant the seeds, ask the questions. Yeah, we've got certified exit planning advisors, but not many people want that because that's hard. That's not very approachable. So we use things like the business reference guide that can give rule of thumb valuations that tells a business how will your business be valued when that time comes. So they're building the value that's ready to sell, not just what they think is valuable. With our AI resource lab, we've got a chat bot now that you can talk to and ask questions about succession planning. It's a lot more approachable than setting up a formal meeting with somebody, you know. Helping clients with financial proficiency and preparedness. You guys probably see this a lot when somebody comes into your office looking to start a business, looking to get a loan. Maybe they're a little underprepared. Maybe they don't know the steps. Maybe they don't know how to read a balance sheet or a financial statement, right? So SBDC can help with that. We can help them learn the lingos, understand what those ratios mean, understand how to read those, and get it all packaged in a way that, again, is ready for you guys to make a decision. A lot of clients, frankly, come to us with, you know, back of the napkin kind of numbers, and we can really help put that into a packet that's professional looking. Our AI resource lab is very new. This is something on our website. AI is the cat's out of the bag, right? And so we want to help arm business owners to use this technology effectively for their business to help them save time, be better, faster, stronger. So we have a 3-video series, AI boot camp, that they can get in and out in about 30 minutes to get their foot in the door with this technology. And then we've got a page full of different AI tools that can help write a business plan, help write a marketing campaign, help analyze customer feedback and other things. And we're going out to the communities and doing live demos, you know, show and tell, helping them, not just telling them about it, but having them open it on their phone and try it out. Talk a little bit about the metrics. So as I mentioned, almost 2 years ago now, we moved over to M-State. So these numbers are the aggregate total for about 2 years. We've served over 625 unique clients. We're over 5,500 hours at this point. So our team is roughly the equivalent of like 2 full-time employees, plus me and Amy. We've helped 10 businesses get bought or sold, and about 75 get started. Helped our clients achieve $25 million in capital. And we're supporting over 2,200 jobs at over $20 an hour. Now, as a federally accredited program, we don't just get to make these numbers up. Our clients signed off on these saying that not only did they achieve them, but we substantively helped them get there. Now, I'd be amiss to say that, our name is the Small Business Development Center, but there's a very vast, wide small business development network out there, from EDAs and entrepreneur support organizations to places like, Greater Fergus Falls or Project 412 and Detroit Lakes. Our goal is not just to support our clients, but to support everyone else doing the work. When I look around at our 9 counties, we've got 82 cities. We've got, a portion of the White Earth Nation, about 240,000 people, and over 13,000 small businesses. And that number is growing by about 260 new businesses per year. So we want to make sure all of our resources collectively are available to all of those 260 new business owners. So when we look around at our strategy there, our strategy is to engage, connect, and collaborate with play nice in the sandbox. So the way we engage is to really, we have an advisory board that we meet with about 3 or 4 times a year. It's primarily the EDAs in the region, from Morris and Stevens County to Alexandria, Detroit Lakes, Moorhead, all around, just to really keep our finger on the pulse of like, what's going on? How can we help? And where do you need us? Where do the entrepreneurs need us? From there, we connect. So we have our regular monthly meeting to support our own consultants, give them professional development, training, connect them with other resources. And we asked, why not invite everyone else to this meeting to make sure they're as well connected as we are? Why hold it to ourselves? So we open this up and invite other people from not only our region, but across the state to create a better connected ecosystem and collaborate. These are the strategic partnerships that we have, from Greater Fergus Falls to Cultural Diversity Resources to Project 412 or SPIDA, is to really, whether that's sharing our CRM for the organizations that don't have one and aren't managing data well, to sharing our match funding to say, hey, can we help make your impact bigger, to maybe sharing some of the tools that we have that they might not be able to afford, to really, share the love and be the rising tides that lift all boats. With that said, I'm getting to the end here. Local support matters. The SBA created us 45 years ago, and they are a major funder of our program. But the money that we get from SBA has to be matched dollar for dollar. So if I knock on any of your doors at any point and ask for some funding, that's what we're doing, is getting that match funding that's needed to make the local support, basically sponsor, you sponsor the local support that you want to see. And that's it. So if you want to scan the QR code, that'll bring you out to our website to learn more. And I'll take any questions if anyone has any at this time.
Questions for Ian? Covered it all. Watch your step. We don't want
Thank you.
Chris not to invite us back if someone trips on a power cord. All right. And there is I neglected to mention, there's a resource table if folks missed that when they came in, that has a variety of handouts, some from the county, some from our partners who are here today as well. And we will send out the slide deck after as well. So you'll be able to access those links or QR codes that are included in the slide deck. So should have mentioned that up front. Hopefully no one is scrambling to take notes on all of Ian's great information. So with that, I'll invite our next speakers up. We have Anna and Hannah. I love it. Like you guys
know, right?
It's
We're
like
a little dynamic duo here.
Myself, the Tom and Tom Demography Roadshow. Anyone? Nope. All right. He's a state demographer and the state economist. Used to both be have names Tom, and they were the Tom and Tom Roadshow. So now it's the Hannah and Anna.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
All right. So here's the clicker. I'll turn it over to our friends here from the SBA.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so Hannah Hollingshead, I'm an outreach and marketing specialist with SBA's Minnesota District Office. My primary role is in engaging in the district office's rural outreach efforts. And then I also work really closely with the Small Business Development Center program, including Ian's team and everybody else throughout the state.
Yeah, and I am Anna Schmiel. I'm also an outreach and marketing specialist. My primary focus area is the microloan portfolio. I also do work with our lender relations specialist on the other loan programs. And then I work on the women's business centers as well.
All right, so Anna and I are just going to give a brief overview of some of SBA's loan programs here this afternoon. And really they're split into three primary buckets. I'm gonna go a little bit more in depth on SBA's 504 loan program, but these borrowers can apply for via certified development companies. There's 7 in the state of Minnesota. Then there's the SBA 7A loan program. That's SBA's flagship program. You can apply for these via traditional financial institutions like banks and credit unions. The 7A program is also broken out into 3 additional buckets. The working capital pilot program, that's new, community advantage loans, and then also international trade loans. And then the last category here, microloans, we won't talk about too much in depth in today's presentation, but these folks can apply for via nonprofit CDFIs. There are 9 SBA microlenders in Minnesota. Like Anna said, she is our liaison for that program. So if you have any questions, like to learn a little bit more, she'd be great to get in contact with. These are loans up to $50,000, administered by nonprofits, and they're geographically located, mission driven. So a really great program. And I would recommend you do get in contact with Anna. Perfect. Okay. So like I said, there are 2 major programs that lenders can participate in. And overall, the goal is to help businesses launch and then existing businesses expand. Anna's going to talk about 7A, but overall SBA provides guarantee of select business loans made by lender participants through the 7A loan program. And there's a few different eligible uses: working capital, accounts receivable and inventory, refinancing of debt, financing changes of ownership, equipment, real estate and buildings, and then also leasehold improvements. For the 504 loan program, the overall goal is to support job creation and economic development. And the eligible uses for 504 are real estate and buildings and issue equipment. We always like to mention though, when it comes to real estate, 504 program does not fund any like speculative investments. So like rental properties, investment properties, those would not be eligible in the 504 program. Some additional information on 504. So it's long-term fixed rate financing up to $5 million or potentially $5.5 million for small manufacturing companies. And these are for major fixed asset projects. And like I mentioned, available through certified development companies. Can be used for existing buildings or land, new facilities, long-term machinery and equipment, or the improvement of any and all of the above. So I think the example I used this morning was we might have a borrower who needs to bring their facilities up to like ADA compliance, or maybe they want to put solar panels on the roof. Those would be projects eligible for 504 loans. The structure is 40-50-10. So the lending institution, like a bank, provides 50% of the project's total cost. And then a certified development company would provide a max of 40% of the project's total cost. And then the borrower between 10 and 20% down, depending on the loan amount. And then we've got the interest rates and maturity information as of November available on here. So for a 10-year term can be as low as 6.46%, 20-year 6.35, and then 25-year as low as 6.28. Also important to mention that as of today, November 15th, 2024, there's been some updates to 504 loan refinancing. Really, the program's just been streamlined for borrowers. There's been some updates to eligibility requirements and some corrections too. So we'd be happy to give you some additional information on that. Some of those changes.
Yeah. And basically, it just makes it easier to, when you're refinancing existing debt, adding more funds to that existing debt. So that's kind of the main improvement there. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the 7A loan program. Like Hannah said, that is our bread and butter program. That's the majority of SBA loans. There are different sub 7A loans, so I'm going to just kind of go over those briefly. And they're all through, your traditional financial institutions. So there's the standard one. That's kind of what everyone knows, up to $5 million with a max maturity of 10 years. And then all of these interest rates, so they're all the same throughout the 7A program, and they're calculated by a specific rate that I will show that in a page, but you can just kind of look at it at your own leisure because there's a lot of numbers. But those rates really depend on the amount of loan that you're receiving, and then also, how's your business doing? Do you have a good business plan? What's your credit score? It really is dependent on, there's a lot of bankers in the room, bank determination on risk. And then plus the prime. So everyone knows the prime, it changes every month depending on the Fed. Then there is the small loan that is up to $500,000, same maturity, same interest rate. And then the SBA Express, which is also up to $500,000. And the max maturity of that is only 60 months since it is a loan that requires a quicker turnaround. That's why it's called SBA Express. And so, there are more stringent requirements to that loan. And then I'm not going to talk about this, but, you can see there, if you want more information, let me know. The working capital pilot program, that is an export-based program, and that is new. And so if you want any more information, let me know if you feel like that would be relevant to any of the businesses that you work with. And you probably know this, but SBA loans are guaranteed for most of our programs, especially the 7A. So the maximum guarantees do depend on the amount that is lent. And so 85% for loans 150 or less, 75% for loans that are 150 and over. For the Express, it's only 50%. Once again, because that's kind of a quick turnaround, there's less involved for the part of the borrower. And so, it is considered a bit of a riskier deal from the SBA side of things. Okay, so another sub-program. I know there's a lot of sub-programs, but I feel like this is kind of an underutilized one that a lot of people don't know about. It's CAP lines. So CAP lines, it's an umbrella program that basically helps small businesses meet their short-term cyclical capital needs via a line of credit. As you know, working with small businesses, sometimes, take out a credit card, put a lot on that. This is really to try to mitigate that from happening. So you can kind of see a trend. It's up to 5 million. Always I say the rule of 5 because we really love the number 5 at the SBA. Interest rate, same as the standard. And then max maturity is up to 10 years, except for one of the builder's cap line, because it is funding construction projects, which, as you know, are just higher scale in terms of the amount of capital you need. The two main ones, there are 4 types. The two main ones that people most often leverage, and these you can also, since it's 7A, get at a traditional bank. Traditional banks can, give out cap lines. Is the seasonal one, and that is for if you need, for example, a business needs purchase a lot of inventory at the start of a season, and that's kind of an expense they don't regularly have. That's where the seasonal cap line would really come into play. And then the contract cap line, that's if a business really is contract dependent. So certain times a year, they don't really have a lot coming in because they've just fulfilled their contracts. That's where the contract cap line can really come in handy. And then here are all those interest rates and fees. The PowerPoint will be shared so you can look at those. And then one program I did want to talk about in depth, it is a 7A program, but it's kind of the bridge between the microloan program, like Hannah said, that's up to $50,000 through nonprofit lenders, and the 7A program. So during last year, we actually made it a permanent program. It's called the Community Advantage Loan Program. And it really is meant to bridge that gap. Oftentimes, you might have a borrower who needs a bit more than $50,000, but also doesn't have the lending experience, doesn't have the business experience, the minimum of 2 or 3 years really of financials to really justify even a traditional 7A loan. And so that's where the Community Advantage loan comes into play. So you do direct your borrowers to apply through nonprofit CDFIs or CDCs that are part of the program, and I'll show you those in the next slide here. They can be used for working capital, inventory, equipment, and real estate. SBA microloans cannot be used for real estate, so it's a nice kind of graduation if a business, needs a bit more than just working capital. And like microloans, they are open to everyone, but they really are geared towards traditionally underfinanced groups. CDFIs, have to work with a specific amount of traditionally underserved communities. And so that can be defined for the CDFI. So that can be women, minority entrepreneurs, certain census tracts that are designated at the federal level, and then veterans. And they are more flexible with character based assessments, and then also more understanding of credit scores as well. And then the maturity is 10 years for working capital, 25 real estate. And then interest rates, it is the same as other 7(a) loan programs. And there are 7 in Minnesota. I won't really go over the metro area ones since I know that's not super relevant here. There is a statewide one for Children's Finance. They're also a micro lender. And they're really for childcare specific businesses, which I know, is a huge need. And so they really focus on that. And then there is the Northland Foundation, which is based in Duluth. They do cover, a wider area than just Duluth. And then there is the Initiative Foundation, which covers Little Falls and St. Cloud. I believe, I'm gonna have to double check, but I believe they will also serve Fergus Falls. So I'm gonna have to double check on that. I think the same office goes into there, but I will have to double check there. Okay, so say you're working with a borrower who doesn't really know where to turn, doesn't know, what loan would be right for them. We do have a tool called Lender Match. I have hyperlink right there at the bottom. Lender Match, you can have the borrower put in their information, how much are they looking for, what they need the capital for, their business experience. And then in a few days, they'll get an email with a summary of the different lenders to reach out to. If you know that they'd be a good fit for the CA program, I suggest you have them reach out directly because there are a lot of lenders in the state. There's around 160 some lenders for all of SBA's programs. And so sometimes that can get overwhelming to get a whole list of lenders when maybe you kind of already know that they would be a best fit for CA because, maybe their credit score isn't as great, they don't have as much business experience, etc. Excuse me. Any questions? That was a lot of info, so. Hey, I'm gonna here's our contact info. So please reach out if you have questions. And I'm just gonna have Hannah do a really quick plug for a program we have coming up.
Yeah, so quick plug for our National Small Business Week Awards. National Small Business Week is hosted every year in the month of May by SBA. And right now we're accepting nominations. They're due on December 5th. And often we have lenders as nominators. Businesses can also self-nominate. A lot of times lenders also provide like a letter of support. So there's some links on the slide as well. You can go online, view some of the award categories. There's 9 different ones for small business owners. And there's some information on eligibility there as well. So we would love to see a nomination.
Awesome. Yes, we have a lot of great small businesses, so please check that out and think about those who are in your portfolio who might be a good fit for any one of those number of awards that are out there. So when you get the slide deck, this will be your reminder to make sure we get some recognition of those. Great. Well, next I'll invite Greg Wagner from West Central Initiative up to talk about the plethora of loan programs that West Central Initiative has to offer our region. So take it away, Greg.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. I am Greg Wagner. I'm the Director of Business and Economic Development at West Central Initiative. A little bit about West Central Initiative. So Ian kind of covered the West Central SBDC's service area. That aligns and matches our service area as well. We serve the 9 counties of West Central Minnesota. We are one of the 6 Minnesota Initiative Foundations. There are 80 of the 87 counties of Minnesota served by an initiative foundation. We happen to have the 9 counties in this part of the state. We are a regional community foundation. And so what that means is like a community foundation, we typically have a philanthropic purpose and a charitable purpose where we provide grant funding to nonprofit organizations and local units of government. We also administer local community funds or donor advised funds, which can span from a short time project that they need to be a nonprofit to raise money for like a pool or a long-term scholarship program administered by the community. We do the back office work so they don't have to actually become the nonprofit, and we kind of monitor the IRS regulations. Among the other things that we do, we have early childhood programs, and that is early childhood dental health and mental health, as well as we have a big focus on advancing and increasing child care capacity for our region and actually across the state. We are also a planning organization. So we serve as a regional planning organization in the absence of a regional development commission. Basically what that means is we offer some transportation planning services. and economic development planning in partnership with the Federal Economic Development Administration. And the biggest things that offers is it brings federal and state dollars to communities through kind of the process that we administer. And then in addition, and it's kind of a rarity for a nonprofit / community foundation, is we offer a lending program. And that is obviously why I'm here to talk to you today. I know we work with a lot of you, there's a lot of familiar faces and newer faces here as far as lenders. And so some of this might be repetitive, some of it might be new information. Glad to be here again today to talk about that. The one thing I like to establish first off about our lending programs is we are not intending to be a competitor. We want to be a partner with all lenders, especially the traditional bank lenders. Our goal is to get projects to the finish line, get them done, get them funded, and get these businesses open. Our priority is really to be involved in the project for only as long as we're needed. Sometimes that's 5 years, sometimes that's 25 years. It just kind of depends on the project and the health of that business. There's a lot of programs out there that have restricted uses. And so we fit the project request into one of our pots or one of our programs that we administer. So it's not up to the business or bank to help them decipher what program to apply for. Really, we just want to have a conversation with the project proposer and the bank, find out where which program fits best, and then we move forward with that program. So we have lots of some federal dollars that have really a lot of restrictions, state dollars, and we have some very unrestricted dollars that are generated by our own earnings from our endowment. So it's pretty open. A lot of questions that we get revolve around what kind of projects can you and can you not do. Really, I use typically as a kind of moniker in describing our program. So typically, we're not going to do any speculative investments. If someone wants to buy a building but don't quite know who the tenants are yet, that's probably not a good fit for us. But a few hard and fast, like we're going to have to pass, is a refinancing debt. So we are not able to refinance really any bank debt, any credit card debt. It gets really hard for us to do a contract for deed refinance, but there is some flexibility in that. So that's one of those typical we can't do. We're not going to do Airbnbs or those kind of investment, passive investment projects. And then this kind of the trend of building storage units and storage complexes, we're not looking to participate in that kind of project either. And for right now, we're not really looking to do cannabis related businesses. And the two primary reasons for that is there's a lot of uncertainty and unclarity in city regulations for how those businesses will be licensed and operate. And then also, I did mention we get a lot of federal funding, and so we don't need to tick off the feds with their funding by something that's still not legal at the federal level. So really, the kind of the program that we like to see, especially when we're talking about our GAP programs, is the borrower is bringing 10%. The bank, you've identified 75% loan to value. And if there's like that 15% piece that needs to be filled, that's a sweet spot for us. We also blend with other programs. So SBA 504, we just heard from the SBA folks. We can fill some of that gap with the SBA 504 program, especially when there's a special use determination where the borrower has to come up with that more than 10%. 10% is a typical expectation that we'd like to see of cash coming in from the business for their equity portion. It's not, again, a hard and fast. We understand there's special circumstances where the business isn't going to be able to provide that full 10% of non-debt cash, but that's the sweet spot. So our GAP programs go up to $300,000. we have a program called Access to Capital, which is more of an accelerated review. Up to $75,000 gap, we match the bank's term on that. We balloon at 5 years for mostly all of our loan programs. And for access to capital, we review the bank's credit presentation. There is not a separate application process to us. We can typically turn a review quicker on that program than our regular programs. Our business and industry loan program is the one that really goes up to $300,000. When we're looking at a $300,000 loan from West Central, that's a multi-million-dollar project. Our sweet spot is 25% of a loan project, but we anywhere between 10% and 40% is where we can go. And then we're going to get projects that either the borrower directly is proposing to us, or the bank looks at it and says, they really can't meet our criteria. Talk to West Central Initiative, and that's our small enterprise loan fund, oftentimes referred to as a micro loan. $50,000 cap on that program. Those are really projects that a bank's not able to look at a lot of times because of loan policy, and just that borrower has not had enough time in owning and operating a business to make them fully bankable. So all of our loan programs are subordinate financing. So we'll take a junior position on all the business assets and on the mortgages. Even on SBA projects, we will behind the bank and the SBA on when we're looking at either a 7A or a 504 program. And then as that borrower needs more money, we do have some flexibility also to subordinate the additional debt. We're going to take a little closer review on those requests. And that might be the point in time where we need to step out of the project if the business is doing well enough. But we can also subordinate additional debt. We won't, if someone's bank shopping and they want to, we're not going to be able to take out, like I said, the refinance on that. But if there's new debt as part of that, moving over to a new bank, we can look at that project, but we're not going to touch any of the existing debts as part of the refinance. One of the bigger things I want to highlight, and I'm throwing a lot of information at you really quick, but we do have a loan flyer in the back that really describes all of our programs. Two special programs that we are operating is a family-based childcare loan program. That is to help a family-based provider get licensed, make improvements to the home. We can support childcare centers through our regular gap lending program. And then we have what we call the Good Food Fund, which is a loan program for basically beginning farmers, local foods efforts. And that's a really small, up to 15,000, but the interest rate is 3.5%. No origination fee, and pretty light view on the collateral. So I think I'll pause there, see if there's any questions with folks. Yes, Mike.
Greg, on the family-based childcare, you provide both financing and maybe some assistance in getting through the process, which can be oftentimes the bigger hurdle for a lot of, small business owners that are trying to understand all of the rules that are in place.
Yeah, so if there's someone that's coming that has not been a licensed childcare provider before, we have Marcia Erickson, who is our early childhood coordinator. She can help navigate to some extent. We kind of have those conversations with a dual focus. I bring Marcia in, or Marcia brings me in as they're exploring becoming a licensed childcare. We've also, as the philanthropic organization, funded other partners to provide childcare navigators or childcare licensing navigators through CAP-LP.
Yeah, and also West Central has funded specific in Otter County. We have 2 part-time contracted individuals who help navigate both center and family care operations. So from a business perspective, accessing all of the resources that are out there right now, particularly around childcare and that capacity. So we do have 2 part-time contracted individuals that West Central Initiative funds in Otter County.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Greg? or childcare, we're talking about childcare.
Yeah,
We could
we could
fit
do
in
that
the
for
whole
hours.
content. Just kidding, we're not gonna do that. We recognize it's Friday afternoon. All right, so with that, we'll move on, and we have Clara Beck here with us today to talk about some Fergus Falls specific resources. And we'll walk through that as well. And as you'll see, Perm was on here. That was from our morning session. And I referenced here's over back. Thanks, Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire Beck. I am the Community Development Director for the City of Fergus Falls, which means that I also have the pleasure of running a small board that is kind of underneath our city council, underneath and sort of to the side of our city council, called Business Development for Fergus Falls. So we have several different loan funds that we administer through that board, and I'm just gonna go through those for you. All right, so we have revolving loan funds, which essentially, just as you, I'm sure, are all aware, means that we started with a big pot of money and we are just continuing to reuse that as projects come forward. So we do have a couple programs that would be considered low interest loans. We also have a couple programs that we consider more gap financing. And again, we're just recycling in and out. So Fund 264, those are our lower interest loans. Those were initially seeded by some HUD funding that has since, I think, mostly fully recycled through. So we have a little bit of flexibility with how we use those, but those are mostly focused on two different pots. We've got the economic development loans, which can go toward things like retrofitting a building for ADA accessibility, things like that, getting a new business up and running, that sort of thing. And then facade loans, which are focused mostly specifically on downtown Fergus Falls, but you can use them anywhere in Fergus Falls. Those we mostly put toward things like updates to the front of a building, getting new signage, that sort of thing. We can mix and match these programs a little bit. We can, in these funds, we have a smaller amount that we can lend, but we can get up to 100,000 for a business through these two programs. Next is one of our state-funded programs called MIF. It's the Minnesota Investment Fund. So this is pretty tailored to manufacturing, like very specific kinds of businesses, green energy, etc. So it's not a fit for every project, but it's a fit for some projects. And so it's always worth a conversation to see if it's the right fit for somebody. This is one of our maybe more of a gap financing program, but it can also just be used in partnership with a bank. So you do have to have a bank involved with it. We like to hit wage goals that the state of Minnesota sets. So there are a lot of parameters to it. But there's yearly reporting, that sort of thing, but we do all of that for you at the city. So like I said, it's a good fit for some projects, but definitely not all projects. But what projects can look like, and some of the things that I've seen are acquisition of land, we do construction or rehab of buildings. You can do site improvements before you start building on a piece of property, utilities, infrastructure, that sort of thing. This is one of our programs that we can use toward the purchase of machinery and equipment. We don't do unsecured loans, so we do need to have some kind of collateral, which can be difficult sometimes with the equipment loans. And then another thing that the state really likes to see is employee training. And I will say we have not had a loan like that in Fergus Falls where somebody's using it for employee training. So if you have a business who's looking to do some of that, we do have funds. Oh, and this one, we can lend up to $200,000. IRP, this is intermediary relending program. This comes from a federal source, but this one has been fully revolved. So we do have a little bit more flexibility with it now, which is great because this is our biggest lending program. We can lend up to $250,000 or 50% of a project, whichever one comes first. This is one that is bank participation required. The bank does have to identify a gap for the project for us to be able to step in and offer any of our funding. But this can be used, again, similarly to MIF, acquisition of land, construction, site improvements. It also covers modernizing a business. So if you're going to be moving into some sort of like computer systems, things like that, we would love to have a conversation. We can also help with business acquisitions or like industrial acquisitions. So if somebody's going to be, selling their business to someone else, we can help that somebody else. And then again, employment, we like to hit wage goals and make sure that this is either retaining or bringing new jobs to the area. One thing we are not, but I think that people really wish that we were, is a fast form of financing. We move at the speed of government, and our approval process is maybe a little lengthy because it involves a lot of people. So since we have a board that meets, we have to give our board a chance to look at the materials. So we take an application in. Sometimes that can be like a 3-week turnaround for us to get all the way through the review process. Then it goes before our business development board. This is one of the things that really freaks people out. We are a government, therefore it has to be a very public process. So there are aspects of an application that are always going to be public. The amount that's being lent, the business that it's being lent to, the names of the people who are associated with that business are all things that somebody can find out just from looking at, a meeting agenda or meeting minutes. Stuff that's like your social security number, things like that, that's always kept, like, we don't put that out there. That's secret. But if somebody were to request information on the loan, they would be able to see, the amount, all that sort of thing. What BDFF does is they get the full loan application package. So they look through that themselves. They have the discussion in one of their meetings about whether or not it's the right fit for the growth that they're trying to see in Fergus Falls. It can be a little bit board dependent. We try to have a really good mix of people who are in the banking industry, are business owners themselves, or are a member of our city council. We always have a sitting city council member as part of the team. And then somebody from our economic development organization, Greater Fergus Falls, is also always a serving member on the board. So sometimes there are certain things that they are excited about and certain things that they're maybe less excited about. It all kind of just depends on who's the board makeup and what are the growth patterns that they are hoping to see in Fergus Falls. Once business development for Fergus Falls has a look at the loan, feels comfortable with it, sets some terms in place, they will send that on to city council. So that's where some of the timeline kind of comes into play, is they have to wait for BDFF meeting for the next city council meeting. And then city council is not seeing the full packet of, they're not seeing the full loan application. They are just seeing the recommendation from BDFF. So it's, again, some of the information is public, but not much of it. And then once it goes through city council and city council says, yep, we think this is a great idea. Good job, business development for Fergus Falls. Then we can move on to the loan closing. So it's not a quick process, but it's an easy to follow process. So it's just me and Jill who are in our office. We're the ones who do all the administration of the loans. So feel free to reach out and ask any questions. We are always open for a conversation. If you're just like, I don't know if this program would work, we would love to hear the idea at least and figure out if we can be a fit. So thank you.
So any questions for Clara on that process? Love government. Government. Okay. And one of the loan programs that Claire mentioned was the Minnesota Investment Fund, which was seeded by state dollars. There is a state level Minnesota Investment Fund that can be applied for as well. We don't have a component on just one program in the state of Minnesota. We don't have that on the agenda today to talk about state level resources, but there are a number, particularly for expanding manufacturing and those types of growth opportunities, whether it's the Job Creation Fund, Minnesota Investment Fund, et cetera, which just high level, keep that in mind if there's large scale projects. So those can be accessed with any of the local partners to get to the state applications. I think we'll take a quick break before MMCDC comes up. So Just to let people stretch their legs a little. We'll keep it really brief and might stay a little ahead of our timeline, depending on how much more we talk. But restrooms, like Chris mentioned, are just right out in the hallway here. There are sodas and water in the fridge and some snacks. So feel free to stretch your legs and connect with anyone who might have spoken already. All right, I'm going to turn over to Nicole and Tim from MMCDC to talk about operating their organization. Right. I am Nicole Kirshner. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at MMCDC. Tim and I are here to talk about commercial lending and our new markets tax credit financing program. First, just a little background on MMCDC. We're formed in 1971. We're a private nonprofit corporation. When we initially were formed, our service area was really around the Detroit Lakes area. Since that time, we've expanded our service area considerably. We serve throughout the state of Minnesota, North and South Dakota, and into Wyoming with our products. We have a lot of different work we do at MMCDC. Tim and I focus on the lending side of things. We also have a mortgage lending area. They do first mortgage loans. They also have some down payment assistance. Right now, they're really busy working on a first generation down payment assistance program. So if you have any individuals you work with that are first gen homeowners, so they have not owned a home or their parents, I would send them MMCDC's way. They can get up to, I think it's $35,000 to assist with their purchase. We also have a property management division that manages some apartment units. We build affordable houses. And then we have a native CDFI that's a subsidiary of ours. And we are a community development financial institution. I think that has been mentioned a few times today, which essentially means we're a mission-based lender and we focus on serving our target market, which I'll talk about in a second. So I put on the slide deck just our vision and our mission statements of basically we're working to help the individuals and the communities we serve succeed and improve their communities. Our mission statement is just as communities and individuals achieve a better quality of life. So on the commercial lending side, we're a non-traditional mission-based lender. We focus on lending to businesses that lack access to capital. So they have a project they need financing and they can't get all of the financing from their local bank. Some of the reasons for that might be limited business history. Maybe it's a startup business. Maybe some past credit history. That is a concern. Collateral concerns we deal with often. Sometimes with the projected cash flow, some payment accommodations are needed that we're able to work around. Or possibly we have to take some secondary source of collateral to secure the note. So ultimately, we look at financing things that they're not able to get traditional bank financing. Our target market per our CDFI designation is listed here. Low income disadvantaged communities, that's defined by census tract information, lower income individuals, and underserved populations. In particular, we focus on Native populations, Black and Hispanic populations. Benefits. So what does our lending provide as far as a benefit to a borrower? We look at providing assistance and financing to new and existing businesses. We look to create jobs, help retain jobs, and just overall community development projects. What we're able to offer to borrowers is interest rates at or below market rates. Right now, our rates are running about 6.8 to 7.3, depending on credit. We have longer term fixed rate options, flexible payment terms. We work really hard to keep our closing costs down and work really hard to lower the amount of capital that a borrower has to bring into a project. We do this by working with lenders like you guys here. So if you have a project that you're not able to finance at all or need some gap money on, we can do that. So sometimes we're the lead, sometimes we're a gap lender. We can lend up to $2 million on a project. Sometimes we're as small as 25,000. Our current portfolio that we have under management is about 56 million. So we have quite a few projects that we're working with right now in our commercial lending side. Similar to bank, we do real estate, inventory, equipment, working capital. And then again, just really working to fund where there's a need where a lender can't or a borrower can't get the money they're looking for. Some of our projects, or excuse me, our programs,
that have been talked about. We have IRP dollars. We have our VAG rural business grant funds. We also are a partner lender with a handful of the deed programs, and we have corporate dollars that we have to lend. But essentially, if you have a project that needs some financing and you just don't, know where to turn, you don't really need to research and understand all these programs. Just reach out to us, and then you will work to find where they would fit in. So any project that you have, we'd be happy to look at and see if we can have it fit in with our commercial lending. And then Tim's going to talk a little bit about markets.
So how many, first of all, I'm Tim Swenson, worked in New Market Tax Credit Financing for 17 and a half years now. Before that, I was teaching middle school typing. So did some coaching for a few years.
Should have done fun facts around the room.
That's right.
Right
It was
there.
a jump, JJJ to this. So here we go. This has been around, this financing tool has been around since 2000. It basically came about because there were not investment dollars going into low-income areas or low-income census tracts. And how do you get that? You incentivize, right? You make sure there's a reason to put those dollars in there and basically, again, create better wealth or life for the employees, businesses, and those communities and tracts that it goes into. So again, that's why it's there. There are some things here. We get into QLICIs and Qualic Bs. A QLICI is basically a loan. What it is, we got to be a little different. Called a QLICI. A Qualic B is a business, a qualified business. There are some businesses in new markets that we cannot do new market loans to. They're called the sin businesses. There's anything with gambling, golf courses, massage parlors. There's anything like that. And then housing has always been a little in the gray area. I know that New Markets is finding a way to do it now. Us at MMCDC, we have not done much housing. I think we've done one deal where we did a housing project. So again, making qualified loans to qualified business in qualified areas. That's what it comes down to for the eligibility. Just a little bit about what we've done. New Markets is an annual application. The CDFI fund awards $5 billion a year out to everyone that applies. There's been this last round, 196 applicants across the country. There were 104 winners. So it is very competitive to win a round, only about 50%. And that actually has increased. About 5 years ago, the winning percentage was about 33% of applicants won an award. We've been lucky enough to win 11 through the years, totaling $734 million. We have closed deals totaling $674 million. Our area, Minnesota, the 2 Dakotas, and Wyoming. We've done one deal. You can take 15% of an award and go outside of your region or your area. So we did one deal in one round out in the state of Washington. Predominantly, we've done Minnesota deals. We've done 116 projects. That's $674 million. And I would say at least 90 are in the state of Minnesota. We're still trying to build that business out in the Dakotas and Wyoming. We also offer a product in our New Markets called a loan fund, a small project loan fund. And what that allows us to do is do deals down to $225,000. Bring the New Markets benefit down into small businesses in rural areas, which we feel is really important. There are certain award winners in our industry won't touch a deal unless it's 8 million or higher, because the legal costs on the front end just eat up the benefit if it's anything less than that. We figured out a way to get the same benefit by lowering the legal costs and setting up a project fund to do deals down to $225,000. There is a process. I won't go through all of that, but it starts with mapping. Again, the tract, it comes down to a census tract, whether you're eligible or not eligible. So it's as simple as emailing Shad or I in our office or giving us a call going, here's the address we're looking at. Our business is here. We'd like to do a 50,000 square foot expansion. Are we eligible for New Market Tax Credit Financing? We run it, it takes us 30 seconds in the mapping system. We can say yes or no, we can start the process. If it maps, we're good. If it doesn't, then we work with other folks, move it along if we can. Then it just goes through an application process, site visit. I will say it was interesting listening to the Fergus Falls gal talk about the process being slow. You want to talk slow. That's here. But Shad and I have met with businesses this summer because when snow melts, we get out and travel around the 4 states and we go visit deals. So we may visit a deal in May of 24 that goes in our application, which is due January of 25, which may win an award in October of 25. And after the paperwork, if we win, we can't loan anything till January of 26. You talk slow and no guarantee. We always say new markets, if your business has got to expand, you have a plan A, plan B, and plan C. We are plan C. Okay? We are at one where the timing has to match up. There's the structure. And when I look at this, I think, man, this is like 7th grade type. This is like the easiest structure right here. Most are not like this. This is a very generic and basic structure that doesn't happen very often in a new markets transaction. But you can see there are 4 main players. We talk about this as a funnel. When we talk to borrowers, the funnel, of course, goes here. We have 2 main players up at the top dropping money into the funnel. You got a bank loan. And again, I've heard it multiple times this morning over in Perm and today so far. We are not competition. We are a partner. We are not, we're not taking business away from it. We want to be part of filling a gap for your borrowers, helping you get a deal done in your community. That's what we are. So a bank loan will come in, dump in this example, 10.7 million, dumps it in the fund. The tax credit investor over there, they're buying the credits from us or whoever has the credits. So they're dumping in 4.2 million to buy 5.8 million of tax credits for their bank. And it's the US Bank, Wells Fargo, Chase, Capital One, it's the big players around the country. That money comes in, $15 million comes into the funnel from those 2. They push that down to us. We're here, this box. We take out a fee because we have the credits. We push it down the rest. 14.4 goes out the bottom of the funnel to the borrower. It goes out in 2 notes, an A note and a B note. The reason we do this is simple. The A note matches the bank debt that came in. The B note is the tax credit money that came into the funnel minus any fees, and that gets you the 3.6 that's left in the B note. So then we kind of can go and talk about what are the benefits to your borrower in this. And really, again, we are a gap financing tool. Okay? For every $10 million of tax credits, the net benefit to our borrower is about 1.7 to $2.1 million. So if you have a borrower that walks into your bank and you've got a $2 million gap to get their deal done, and it maps and it works in new markets, there's your gap, right? Because that's about what the net benefit will be on $10 million of tax credits. This example, 15, you're looking at 2.7 to 3.1 as a benefit. So again, the benefits to the borrower doing this. We, in our app, say we're going to give 5 better rates and terms to every one of our borrowers. And it is very competitive. If you don't say you're going to do 5 better rates and terms, your app is almost thrown out immediately. You're not winning. The 5 better rates and terms that we give, number 1, it will be a better interest rate at the bottom than conventional debt. You can go into the bank and they can say, or you can come down on CDC. And we can say 6.8. New markets, we're going to be about 6.5 at the bottom. And again, when you're talking 10, 15, $20 million deals, $30 million deals, those little points are big money to our borrowers. Second one is loan origination fee. Anytime you go into a conventional bank, the bank's going to take a loan origination fee of anywhere from 0.5 point to 1.25, somewhere in there. We're going to go 0, no loan origination fee. Again, that's money back in our borrower's pocket. It's a benefit, or that they can put in as equity. Third thing, interest only. Most banks we will go construction, 12 to 18 months of interest only. Our borrowers, 7 years interest only. 7 years, always interest only. That's the length of the new markets loan or program. Okay. Fourth thing, loan to value. This is one I think that is so important, because again, to businesses out there that go look for that debt, and then if it's equipment, which we can do in new markets, maybe it's 50% loan to value. Okay, now that business has to take and make a choice. Do we put the money in the equipment, or do we put the money into people and create more jobs? For us in new markets, we'll beat that 50%. We can go up to 100% loan to value, which is, again, we want a little skin in the game, but we can go up to 100% loan to value. And then the fifth thing is covenants. And I'm one, again, sorry if I'm sitting around with a bunch of funders that have covenants in their documents, and that's what they do. I hate covenants with a passion, and we are lucky in new markets because we don't have to have that debt service coverage ratio covenant. Where maybe it's 1.2 or 1.25. We look at our borrowers across the table and go, can you pay us our debt? Can you make the interest only payments for 7 years? That's all we care about. 1 to 1.03 is our covenant or debt service. So those are the benefits to the borrower. And then you get the carrot. And the carrot is that what we call unwind. 7 years later, we're going to do an unwind and collapse that structure. We're going to get the investor out. We're going to get us out. And it's basically going to become the borrower and maybe the bank. Okay? And so what ends up happening is the borrower has the option to hear if they stay compliant, and that's what we do. I saw another slide, I think it was Ian, said had hand holding, right? And we use that all the time. We say we hold hands with our customers and our clients all the time, because this B note is potential debt forgiveness to our borrowers. If they stay compliant for 7 years, that B note can go away. Well, now you're looking at, you had a loan for 14.4, but now you're down to 10.7. And you didn't have to make all those principal payments for 7 years. So now you just go in and you refinance or assign, however you want to do it, with your bank in your community. And now you got a conventional loan, because now maybe loan to value matches up nicely and they can do that. That's at the 7 year mark. Borrower refinances or pays off, debt forgiveness from the equity, and the new market structure goes away and collapses. Again, it is a great thing. And again, I cannot say it enough. When we do a deal out in Wyoming and we talk to a bank, we tell the bank, we are not your competition. No one that you lend to in new markets is going to know where Detroit Lakes, Minnesota is in Wyoming, right? And they're going to see, the borrower will see Shad and I twice a year for 7 years, so we can hold hands and make sure they get to the carrot. But again, we're not competing. We want to fill a gap, fill a need to get a job and a deal done that betters the community, their employees, their business, allows them to hire. That's what we want to do. Low income, again, we talk about that. The mapping system just checks poverty levels, income levels, unemployment, and it has to map. Some deals that have been done. There are a couple there. I just want to get to this slide. Fergus Falls Cancer Treatment Center here in town. We did new markets there. We have done, I think, 5 deals in Fergus. Forgot to mention this morning in Perham. We've done about, I think, 6 or 8 deals in Perham with new markets too. So again, we've done a couple big deals in Fergus, including the Cancer Treatment Center with 11 million. And then we've done a couple loan funds where we have worked with a bank here in town that was the leverage lender or the bank debt. And then at the 7 year mark, they refinanced the deal. We got out. It all worked the way it was supposed to. Again, a partnership, not competition. Anything, Nicole? Any questions for Nicole or Ryan? And again, I thank you for your time. I said this morning in Perham, Chad and I go around and do these things for new market tax credits. We get 2 hours. This was like a speed thing this morning.
Introduce the ideas.
Yeah, that's right.
Hopefully remember it someday when that deal comes through, and I know Chad's familiar with new markets, but you know, where it's a fit, it's a great fit. It fits, right? And
Yep.
I did pull up the map while we were sitting here, and I know it changes. We're still in the 2020 time,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, 2 of the 3 census tracts in Fergus are eligible from that, that starting point at the mapping. Perham, Pelican, New York Mills. I mean, most of our primary communities where industry is and projects might generate are right now in that eligible census tract areas. So So we're not talking about something that's not possible here.
That's
Yeah.
correct. That's correct.
Because sometimes that's the kicker.
Yep,
right? Oh, that's great. Oh, but you can't use it. You don't. Yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing I forgot to mention. So with the Inflation Reduction Act, there's some clean community accelerator money coming. MMCDC is working on this, developing our programs, also our native CDFI as well. So part of what we need to do is we need to set up our programs and create a pipeline of projects that we're intending to fund. And there's a significant amount of money that might come to organizations like us, up to 10 million. So if any of your communities or you're talking to people in your day-to-day business that they're looking at some clean projects or have ideas of the needs, touch base with us because I think it'd be good to get some of those ideas moving along. So we have a pipeline.
What's the native owned CDFI fund?
Our native CDFI is the White Earth Investment Initiative. And they do commercial lending, consumer lending, mortgage lending, focusing on the White Earth Reservation and the Native Americans real estate.
Any other questions? All right, so moving on, we're gonna have kind of, it's a panel, but we're really gonna call it a group discussion. And I am going to invite Greg and Ian back up to help be part of that conversation and discussion with folks. There's been a lot, you hear a lot like, oh, we have a gap lending program, we have a gap lending program, they have a gap lending program. I offer services. Oh, there's local, EDAs that have services. Like, how do you navigate it, as you have the business coming through your door? And whether you're a lender or, work with businesses on a different intersection. Just want to, kind of bring some context to some of these resources and programs and how do they get leveraged. So, I think a phrase that was used this morning, and I don't know if it was you, Nicole, it said, there's no wrong door. And maybe let's start with that kind of idea. Greg, I don't know if you have an example or think about a client that maybe was working with MMCDC or a local EDA and you both talked to them, plus their primary lender, just kind of how does that work? Give us some context. Put me on the spot.
Yeah. I'm gonna steal Ian's joke because he said, this is more like a fireside chat than a panel. So,
Yes, there we go. I mean, I thought about like pulling the chairs up front.
yeah.
And then, could still do that.
But, yeah, I think a good example that we had discussed already is, so West Central Initiative had provided a local grocery store in within the region some financing a couple years ago. So they're an existing client familiar with West Central's programs. That grocery store is now making some expansion plans, which is going to require a relocation. And they have been working with MMCDC on the financing request, and then heard that West Central Initiative is advertising some other loan programs. We got some state funds that we're administering under the Promise Act loan program, which are pretty complicated rules because it's a state-run program, but really it's a construction-based projects. And so that business owner contacted us and said, hey, what programs do you got? I'm working with MMCDC right now, but what does West Central have? And I said, well, we don't compete, but I bet there could be some collaboration here because I don't want to speak for Nicole. They were looking at doing the full loan, taking on more risk of grocery stores can be a little bit risky with profitability. And so we were able to collaborate. Now we're considering, I think of it like 35–40% of the loan, where that's going to take some of the risk off of MMCDC's shoulders. And then we'll assume some of that risk and get some state dollars at a really great rate, working for the customer to help build on their success. So that's kind of how our programs can stack with others. I know I didn't, is Clara still here?
Oh, shit, step out.
Yeah, so I didn't talk about this too much when I was presenting, but how we can work our loan programs, especially on GAP, is yes, we'll partner with a lead lender, but also sometimes like the city of Fergus Falls is part of the project. So we will kind of do a capital stack where there's all kinds of different sources for the the funds and, so we can aggregate and spread that risk. So it kind of works for everybody and they can take advantage of that local community investment, the local bank, and then, you know, some additional regional dollars as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs will have had maybe a mortgage or an auto loan, and those are largely just standardized, collateralized, transactional loans. And so they come into business, especially the first time. And everybody has a first time. You know, some business owners go to get a business loan the second or third time, but that first time they come in with these expectations like, oh, it's gonna be easy like a car loan or a mortgage. I'll just, you know, have an appraisal done or whatever. And they don't know about stacks and note A, note B, and gaps and all these things. So it's like there's this
Stacks and
huge
gaps.
learning.
That's gonna be our next
Gaps and stacks.
Stack, that's gonna be
Yeah.
on the next,
It's the learning curve, and then with the learning curve comes building that network of, oh, you need to go talk to Nicole and Greg and, you know, fill in the blank.
Yeah, and I mean, I think your range of services, you know, you talked a lot about them and it's immense. And I'm so glad that the utilization of the SBDC has been increasing because to have someone come before they get to, you know, the bank, before they walk in and talk to Chad or to Erica or, you know, whoever they're going in to talk to that first time and say, yeah, I'm gonna start a business. Okay, yeah, good. No, but you know, and knowing that your services of your organization, all that expertise behind, you know, behind the organization is available, I think is something I just can't emphasize enough. You know, as I've worked in local government, community development, Scott, who we go way back in the days, but over 20 years now, and I think closer to 30, but to have those resources as, you know, sometimes we are the first line, you know, like someone in the community and they want to start a business and it's like, I can't help you with that, but let me share a resource who can. And I think we're really lucky to have such a strong SBDC in our region to help all those entrepreneurs. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, think about that. I don't know if you have anything else to add on how to, how people come to you. You know, you kind of talked about, I guess, this morning about the, you know, the first time home buyer, but the repeat, you know, that you get repeat customers too, you know, in different phases of their business. Maybe want to talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, we'll oftentimes work with people when it's starting their business, you know, and our average client is like 10 hours over the course of a year. So we're meeting with them several times. They get started and, you know, once you get started in business, the business and the customers and the phones and emails, it sucks you in. So, you know, we might not hear back from that client for 6 months, a year until they're like, oh, my accountant told me I need this, whatever it is, you know, can you help me with that? Or I'm ready to get another expansion to a second location or something like that. So they come back with a new problem to solve. And, you know, they need to be connected with various people throughout that journey. So it's like constantly helping to build their network.
Yeah, so if someone comes into the system and starts their business plan or, you know, starts working with the consultant, what happens if you don't hear from them for 6 or 8 or 9 months and then they, you know, get some time to work on this idea, particularly in a startup sense, organization or business? How long do they stay in your system? I don't know this answer. Really?
Well, what we say is
Yeah.
once an SBDC client, always an SBDC client.
Okay.
There is a limit, but it's not very easy. Trust me, busy entrepreneurs will never hit that limit.
Okay.
If they do, I have to wonder, but,
Okay.
you know. But yeah, we've worked with businesses that have, I mean, Skip Carpenter is one of our consultants. He's been in our region for 30 years, since 1994 doing this work. And he's had clients that, you know, he worked with mom and dad to start the business and they're now handing it down to their kids. So there's, it's a federal resource that's available. So there's really no timeline. There's no termination.
Questions? I mean, who has thoughts or questions on, you know, how do these resources work together? You know, if you haven't worked with them from the lender standpoint, any questions?
While people are thinking, I'll just add a little bit more. So I like the first time home buyer analogy because I don't know about the lenders in the room, but if you're actually having what I experienced too, is someone will come in and say, I'm gonna start a business, what can I get approved for? Oh, sure, here's a stack of cash, pay it back, right? So I don't think we as lenders have the capacity or time to be that first time home buyer's realtor. So it's nice to have the SBDC to, and sometimes I feel bad about it. I'm like, hey, Ian and Amy, I got somebody I'm gonna refer to you. Good luck. So, but it's a great resource and it sets them on the right footing because then they're coming to us or to the bank more prepared with a business plan, some projections, and some better understanding of the process. And I've seen that, not that I've done this for a super long time, but since 2016, there seems to be more of an expectation of looser and freer money than when I had first started. So it's good that the SBDC's reputation has, even in the last 2 years, increased, and it's definitely a go-to resource.
But just to add to that, Greg, we're seeing more and more people that went to the online lenders, the credit card, I can't remember what they're called, but anyway, and they're all great. You get money the next day or that afternoon, but when you got to start paying that back, it hurts.
Yeah.
So it's really, really good to do things the right way on the front end. That's where, Ian and his team come in, and then the rest of us come in after you get the business plan put together, rather than just taking, the easiest money, because there's a reason why it's easy. And I've seen businesses fail because they can't afford to pay back the $12,000 a week or whatever the payment plan ends up being. So
One that really gets me is like when it's not even a loan, it's a sales advance.
yes,
So they don't have to play by the same rules that you do and use
Exactly.
the same terminology that's standardized because it's not a debt program. And those end up to be like 20% monthly interest, much less 20% credit card,
Well, we've seen a lot of those as well. On kind of a different track as far as stacking or partnering. MMCDC, a few different times we partnered with banks that have reached their lending limits with their clients. They've got a great relationship. They've just hit whatever that max might be. So we've come in and partnered by doing some financing if they're not able to fund, an additional amount if it's equipment or what have you. Or assisting with the gap if, say, the bank is comfortable with 50% or 60% coming in. And that way with a customer that you're working with and you're familiar with, it's a bit more established than, some of the other options we've been talking about.
Comments or questions? Another piece that came up this morning was, again, back to the stacking and the gap lending and how to layer in the SBA loan products and, reduce the bank's risk. But then also, even if that customer has the cash to make that 20% or 30% that might be required, is that the right best business decision for them? Or is it better to layer again, another, local gap program to free up that cash to put into their business for working capital? And so just always thinking, and I know as lenders, you guys do that, but just there are so many lending resources. That was when the county, when our community development agency board said we want to get more focused on the business development side. It hasn't been something in the last 6 years, 5.5 years that I've been at the county that we've really talked about it, but they felt there was a need and at first, some of our policymakers were like, well, we need a loan fund. And I said, no, we don't. I said, we need to make sure there's awareness about the loan funds. I mean, between West Central and many of our local communities and MMCDC and making sure we're leveraging SBA and all of the resources. My staff recommendation was that we don't start another loan fund. We could have applied to USDA for the intermediary lending program, IRP, which was mentioned several times. And so we didn't. I mean, we said our role is going to, what we're recommending is to be a convener, to make sure the information is getting out there, sharing the resources, sharing the information, connecting partners. So that is where we're focusing, just to make sure that's clear, that we're not, we did a scan of the landscape to see where does our role, where do we fit in as the county, and that's where we've landed. So we're kind of at the front end of that little adventure, but being just a few months really in. So we're trying to do that, but we also will take feedback of where else do you see gaps in the services? If there is one, there could be a role for us to play if there is a gap. So any other comments or thoughts in the audience or the fireside chat?
I like to focus on awareness because I think, especially nowadays, Scott mentioned kind of more and more online lenders, but it's not just that, it's, investors too. And I think more and more, there's always been investors, angels or venture capitals, those types of things, but more and more these days, there's programs that really try to facilitate that. It used to be where investors were hard to find. They didn't want to be found because they didn't want a bunch of rookies knocking on their door asking for money. But now it's kind of like cool. And so you get a lot of these businesses that maybe shouldn't get investor funds that are being encouraged to get investor funds. And these are not primary sector businesses that are not going to turn into $10 million companies in 7 years. And so these investors become like anchor weights to these. And I've seen, the worst, divorces and business failures because they got this investor tied to them that they can't get rid of. And so I think it's awareness of the funds and different programs that are out there, making sure people are making well-informed decisions about their capital and, not overextending their own savings. So if a little hiccup happens, the house of cards doesn't fall down. And so, SBDC's, I'm biased. I think it's great, but I think we're amongst a really cool time that got a lot of really intelligent people in the finance world that are helping. And so the better connected we all are, I think the better off we all are, because so many of us aren't competing, but customers, without having the awareness, they might believe we're competing. So they make it up in their head with the lack of information. So it's nice that we're all connected and aware of each other's services and programs and pros and cons to get the clients to the right capital.
If you refer customers to one of us, being subordinate lenders or SBA lenders or whatever, I think you'll find, I'm confident that you'd find that we all talked about different programs and stuff. We all do much of the same thing, but we also are focused not so much on maximizing our profits, our mission. We're mission driven. And our focus is helping small business owners. I think, Mike and I are competitors, but we're friends. We tend to work well together. One of our competitors in Fargo used this term at an event that was at Amber. And I thought it was kind of cool. She called us, she said we are co-opetition. You know what? That's a really good term because we are. To some extent, we're competing, but our mission is to get the deal, get a deal that should be done in the best way possible for the business owner.
Good closing comment for that discussion, right? We're all here to support the businesses the best way we can. So, all right. Well, thanks, guys. We'll keep our day moving. We do have our next presenter is going to be online, so we'll need to adjust an audio setting, but. All right, we're just getting the audio set up. I'm unmuting our room here, but we should be good. Do you want to do a test, Heidi?
Perfect. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, great. It's coming through great.
That was smooth this time. Good.
And just Heidi, I was just going to mention, Otter Power did do a quick welcome since we are at their space today. They know you're speaking and they want to make sure their resources are available as well. I don't think Chris mentioned that this morning. There are some resources from Otter Power that he dropped off. So, all right, take it away, Heidi.
Yeah, they have amazing resources. I would say of all the utilities we've been working with, I'm always happy to be working with people in Otter Power's region. So I was asked to kind of talk about some of the clean energy funding opportunities in the PACE program. I'm Heidi All from the Clean Energy Resource Teams, or CERT. And sorry you couldn't be there in person today. I'm based out of our University of Minnesota Extension offices in Brainerd. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of who we are, what we do, and then we'll dive into some funding options for energy improvements within business and nonprofit sector. So we are a statewide partnership with a shared mission to connect individuals and their communities with the resources they need to identify and implement community-based clean energy projects. We support communities and their members in adopting energy conservation, energy efficiency, and renewable energy technologies and practices for their homes, businesses, and local institutions. Next slide. We are a public-private statewide partnership of 4 entities. We have a government partner, which is the Minnesota Department of Commerce, a nonprofit partner who leads the Metro 13, that's the Great Plains Institute, a development commission, the Southwest Regional Development Commission, and they do work in the Southwest Minnesota, and an educational partner, the University of Minnesota Extension's Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships. So that's who I generally work directly with. The Greater Minnesota coordinators, such as myself, are part of University of Minnesota Extension. So we try to offer unbiased technical assistance as being part of all those partners. And so with the right staff expertise, resources, and connections to help people move forward, we provide limited financial assistance through seed grants offered every 2 years to kickstart local energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. And we work across all of Minnesota. We have 7 different regions in Minnesota, and the region I work with mainly it's through Mille Lacs County all the way over to Wilkin County. So it encompasses Otter too. Next slide. And we help everybody. We do a lot of work with businesses and nonprofits. I personally do a lot of food shelf work and some business outreach. We work with cities and counties, especially with solar public building programs, and work with farmers, residents, and schools, tribal nations, underserved communities, and utilities all across Minnesota. Next slide. So as I hear you saying, there are lots of different ways people need to put finances together to create business and do different things within their business. So there's a lot of ways you can stack those things. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And with all the federal bills full of clean energy incentives, new state rebates, as well as rebates from local utilities, there's a lot of options available for finding funding sources for energy projects. Today, I'll cover ways people can pay for their projects, and I'm going to go over a few other options and then narrow down to PACE financing. Next slide. When businesses and nonprofits are looking for lending options, there are some other financing considerations to take into account, which may affect the total amount needed for a loan. I'm sure you are all familiar with these things: tax credits, tax deductions, and rebates. Next slide. Sorry, I'm slow. I'm getting my notes up too. So most of the information today is geared towards businesses, but if you do lending to nonprofits, it's helpful to know there are options for incentives for non-tax paying entities as well. There are 2 ways direct pay is most helpful for tax exempt entities: renewable energy systems such as solar and geothermal and electric vehicles. So the Inflation Reduction Act created a credit for qualified commercial vehicles, whereby tax exempt entities will receive a payment of up to 30% of the cost of the qualified vehicle, such as $7,500 for vehicles with a gross weight of less than 14,000 pounds, like fleet cars, heavy duty trucks, and then $40,000 limit for vehicles that are above that weight, such as school buses, utility bucket trucks, and fire trucks. And so direct pay comes after an entity would pay for that purchase, and then they would get the money back later. That's kind of one thing to note with nonprofits. It's a lot harder for them to finance projects this way because they get their funds back after they pay for it. So it's kind of more as a, not a rebate form, but kind of like that. So that's kind of where a lot of them are looking for lending to kind of fill in that gap of, we're paying for it now, we might not get the money back until a year or so. So that's one opportunity there. Next slide. So back to things for businesses and farms. Another big incentive that they can take advantage of is the 179D tax deduction. Non-tax paying organizations can allocate the deduction to the architect or the engineer. Previously, a business needed to meet 50% energy savings to acquire a $1.88 per square foot tax credit. And the formula has been updated to have the tax deduction determined by the amount of energy savings. So with a baseline of 25% energy savings, they can claim 50 cents per square foot. And then for each additional percentage of energy savings, you get 2 cents more per square foot, up to $1 a square foot. If they meet prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements for the project, you can get up to $5 a square foot for 50% energy savings. For example, a 100,000 square foot building, the base deduction starts at 50,000, but with the bonus deductions, it can go as high as 500,000. When renovating or building, nonprofits and businesses need to be guided by qualified professionals. And then to receive this deduction, you're required to receive certifications from a credentialed third-party consultant. So with commercial solar incentives, the main tax credits for renewable energy products are the investment tax credit, or some people call it the ITC, and the production tax credit, or the PTC, and that is based on the kilowatt hours generated by the system. The investment tax credit was bumped up to cover 30% of your project cost. If the project is bigger than 1 megawatt, which is a really big project, the tax credit's only 6% unless you meet prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements, in which case you would get the full 30%. And there's more information on our website at the QR code about that. If the project is smaller than 1 megawatt, which is most business and farm projects, you automatically get the full 30%. Starting January 1st, 2025, this tax credit will be replaced by the Clean Electricity Investment Credit, which is similar, except it isn't limited to solar. It will apply to all generation facilities and energy storage systems that don't emit greenhouse gases like solar, wind, geothermal, fuel cells, combined heat and power, biogas, and more. And one other thing that happened, is taxpayers can transfer some or all of their tax credits to an unrelated taxpayer. Transfers have to be reported to the IRS, and only one transfer is permitted. All that said, I'm giving you information that we know about, but I am not an expert in how that works. Next slide. So if you have someone who's doing a commercial scale project, they can also have adders for that clean energy project. They can increase the 30% tax credit up to higher credits if certain criteria is met. If a project's located in a low income community or tribal community, up to 10% is added. Many areas in rural Minnesota are considered low income. Or if the project is part of an affordable housing project or financially benefits low income or tribal communities, up to 20% is added on top of that. These projects can stack additional 10% increments of credit if they're located in energy communities, which are defined as a brownfield site or a closed landfill or community that is heavily dependent on fossil fuel jobs. There are maps online through the IRS where it tells you if it qualifies for any of those adders too, so that's helpful. So for instance, if you put a solar array on an affordable housing project on a cleaned up brownfield site using Made in America products, you could get up to 70% tax credit. Next slide. So I heard that Otter Power told you about their programs, which are great. They have great rebates on appliances and their equipment. They have a custom design program for businesses, custom incentive programs, and they can offer energy assessments too, which are required for some grants and tax deductions. So customers need to know kind of what they need to do up front too before claiming a lot of these things. Next slide. A lot of people probably are familiar with the REAP program. It focuses on increasing private sector supplies of renewable energy. Rural, in this case, includes areas with populations of 50,000 residents or less. And new funding includes an additional $2 billion for grants and loans. There are competitive grants with 4 deadlines per year in March, June, September, and December. And for maximum benefit, you can combine REAP and federal rebates and tax credits, utility rebates, and PACE funding. Next slide. So types of REAP funding available, there are grants and loans, and loan guarantees can cover up to 75% of eligible project costs. REAP grants can cover up to 50% of the project costs. Combined grants and loan guarantee funding can be up to 75% of total eligible project costs. Next slide. Many grants have been given for projects such as wind, solar, and grain dryers on farms, but you can also apply for smaller projects like upgrading heating and cooling, installation, lighting, refrigeration, doors and windows, changing your irrigation motor from diesel to electric, and replacement of equipment for more energy efficient models. And don't forget that funding also applies to businesses that aren't farms. And we at CERTS currently have funding for assisting businesses in writing the REAP, businesses and farms, and writing the REAP grants. So if you know of someone who's looking to add that for part of their funding for their project, you can contact me. We can help them out. Next slide. So the PACE program, or Property Assessed Clean Energy, is a way to finance building energy efficiency, renewable energy, and EV infrastructure. It is repaid as a separate item on the property tax bill, and the financing term extends to 30 years. The loan to value limit is up to 30%. It used to be 20 years and 20%, and they've updated that recently. It's available for everyone except residential and governments in the state. So commercial, nonprofit, based communities, multi-housing providers can all access this funding. There are a lot of stories on our website about different people and different ways they have accessed this funding. A lot of people have used it for solar, but some people have used it for an on-demand hot water heater at a car wash, of the LED lighting projects, HVAC, refrigeration, compressors. Office buildings have used it for lighting and roof insulation. So it's kind of just any way that works with efficiency. There's a lot of ways you can use the funding. Next slide. So the benefits are it's 100% financing with no upfront costs, long-term fixed rate up to 30 years. You have less energy consumption and lower utility bills, which is a benefit. It can increase property values and marketability, and you have the ability to pair rebates and tax incentives to accelerate the return on investment. Next slide. So the projects you can finance with PACE are any energy efficiency projects such as HVAC, lighting, equipment, insulation, air sealing, and more. Renewable energy projects and EV charging infrastructure. Next slide. There's a map of I don't know if that's all the PACE, I don't think this is super updated, but these are a lot of PACE projects that have been taken advantage of in Minnesota. Cities and counties with PACE funding are on the map. There are some counties and cities that are currently working on procuring the funding because you have to go through the St. Paul Port Authority and you have to go through the local government to get that approved within a county. And once the program is in place, it's a straightforward application. All projects are designed to help you save money from the outset. So how it works is Minnesota state law allows local governments to enter into joint powers agreements with MinPACE, which is a division of the St. Paul Port Authority. From there, commercial, industrial, nonprofit, and multifamily property owners take on voluntary tax assessment to finance energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. Next slide. So once the program's in place, like I said, the building owners evaluate and select projects, the application is submitted. With an energy audit, you have to have an energy audit in order to apply for the PACE lending. Lender and consent and financials are there. Loan is approved, projects completed, and then the savings pay for the assessment. Next slide. So some examples of projects that have used PACE funding to give you kind of an idea of how wide the breadth has been with people using it. New construction on a hotel in Rochester. It was three new hotels owned by one California-based developer have used the PACE program in Rochester. The PACE loan paid for improved insulation, roofing, building envelope features, and mechanical equipment. And at least 6 hotels, including those in Rochester, and around a dozen senior homes have used PACE for new construction projects. So it doesn't just have to be a retrofit, it can be new construction as well. Next slide. So a smaller operation would be a handyman business. 10 kilowatt solar placed there, the cost is $34,000, and they were able to do it with MinPACE funds, Excel Energy Solar Rewards, and a federal tax credit. And as you can see, says by what Paul says, the process wasn't too complicated. Next slide. Another example of a business using the PACE funding is it helped a small restaurant in Ely to do some retrofits. They stacked the funding with a local business energy retrofit program. A variety of examples from different types of businesses and level of financing from across the state shows that PACE can be a source for many different types of energy projects. That's pretty much all I have. So that's the overview of clean energy tax credits for businesses and nonprofits and different funding sources. To find more information on projects and ways you can pay for them, you can visit our website at the QR code. If you have questions, like I said, I'm the regional representative for CERTS. Peter Lindstrom is our PACE expert. So he is also available via email. He also does our solar on public buildings and solar on schools program. So if you know anybody who's interested in those, he's a great resource there as well. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Heidi? And thinking about how you can reduce those operating expenses for or construction costs for clients, and how that can just help their bottom line is really important these days. And there's a lot of resources out there to help with that, whether it's a local utility or using some of the resources to help take that broad view about what the best route is, what the best plan might be for accessing those resources. So Heidi, appreciate you joining us today. And again, we'll send the slide deck out for participants so they'll have your contact information.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right. Well, moving to our last section here, and of course, Ottersville County can't have an event without talking about housing. But first slide here is just making sure the lenders in the room know that Minnesota Housing has wants folks to become local participating lenders in a couple of their programs. The Startup Step Up program is for more of the acquisition side, and then there's a Fix Up program for rehab loans that is also available. And if you don't know if the bank you work for is a lender, I could look that up. But if not, check that out. There's some brochures on the program. So if you are a lender in these, and I think Bell is, if you need any of the brochures, we have a supply of those. So if you want to take those, Bremer is to that popped to mind. But so if you need any of those brochures to hand out to your clients, we have a pretty big stack of them. We just got a reorder from Minnesota Housing. So we have those available to take today if you want those. And then just a really quick recap of the resources we have. Minnesota Housing has down payment. Some other organizations do. MMCDC. Thank you for mentioning the first gen home buyer. That's a great program that's out there and is limited in its supply of funding, I think. I mean, that will be when it's gone unless it's refunded. So making sure to check in with those to help folks get into homes. Our down payment assistance program offers up to $15,000. It is not available within the city of Fergus Falls, but the balance of the county is eligible to apply for that. We partner with other down payments, and we can do 10 and 10, or if the other program is 10, we could match that with 10 for if they're eligible for another entity's down payment and are otherwise qualified. Just a couple of reminders. We do have some FAQs printed out, but to the home buyer is who should be reaching out to us. We know our lenders and our mortgage folks are great referrals to that, but we do want to hear from that home buyer who is the actual applicant and make sure they understand the program requirements and what will be necessary for them to apply for it. There is an household income criteria for that. And then we also are government, as has been stated, and it takes us a bit to turn around a check. So even after, just to keep that in mind, we'd like to have at least a 30-day window to make sure we can process those funds and get them to title for closing. So 30-day window is ideal. We can sometimes turn it around faster, but we cannot guarantee. So, all right, I think that's it for down payment assistance. I wanted to just mention also the application deadline for the county's single-family tax rebate program is approaching. That was a limited term program and we were at that 5-year term. So applications will still be accepted at the end of this calendar year. And construction needs to start within a year of that application. And so they would still be eligible for the 5 years of rebate for that home, so it doesn't shorten the duration. But that would be the end to apply to get into that program through the county. Some of our cities are looking to continue that. We have, and the city would partner on, or the county would partner with those cities. But the city is kind of becoming the lead where they wish to continue it. Pelican Rapids is moving forward with a continued program. City of Otter Tail, maybe City of New York Mills are some that I've heard of so far in the county who are looking to continue that housing program. Any questions on that? And then we do have copies of our one-page flyer for our overall housing finance program. So just keep those in mind. And if you have someone, a developer who is looking at a project, please contact us. And we have, depending on the community, we have different resources. We have infrastructure grants to help with housing projects, $100,000 infrastructure grants. So can be still a drop in the bucket sometimes, but it can hopefully help move a project forward or a smaller project, as well as some other loan programs for multifamily projects. So keep this in mind if there are housing projects. We are planning another full day housing summit next spring. So watch for a save the date to come out on that if there's a housing is of particular interest to you. So we'll be doing that again this spring. And with that, we are wrapped up for the day unless there's more questions. Again, visit the resource table if there's anything that's piqued your interest today. Connect with folks before they leave, but we'll get these slides out at some point next week. We also do various e-newsletters. So if you're not signed up or getting those, we have a business development one, we have housing, we have a workforce focused newsletter, as well as our general newsletter that goes out. They're on a cycle. You won't get 4 in 1 week from us. You can always opt out, but if you're not getting those, feel free to get signed up. We'd love to add you to our distribution list. And that's it. Thank you to all our speakers for sticking with us for the day. Thank you to all the lenders and other partners who are here today. We appreciate all of your work to support our business community throughout Otter Tail County. Have a great weekend. Hope to see you guys soon.